right? So this is an island. This is a map of Rikers Island in the middle, and then you can see these little bubbles around. So you see the red bubbles are peaker plants around Rikers Island. So there's a few on the Historia side and some on the Bronx side. You can also see these blue bubbles, which are wastewater treatment plants. So there's 4 in this area. We're actually going to walk by one, which is actually on the waterfront in Hunts Point. And then you can also see these small little kind of rings, these green rings. So these are waste transfer stations. So these are where the trucks that pick up your garbage, this is where they come from, right? And so all of these are really centered in the South Bronx, and particularly, and also along the waterfront lanes. And so the idea would be, why don't we push it out of places where people live onto our island? That's, again, away from folks, but also, 400 acres that we could do some stuff with and actually have some clear benefits for the rest of the city.
How many acres?
It's 4, well, Rikers a little over 400. Yeah. So it's not small, right? But it's, but it's not huge. So we have to be specific about how we're using that land, and also recognizing that we're dealing with climate change and sea level rise. So, in 30 years, when this vision of Renewable Rikers might be close to done, we may not have 400, we may not have 350 or something like that.
There's ways to build that.
Right, absolutely. Right. And so, again, we believe that this is the best future for Rikers Island, but we also recognize that we can't get here unless the jail's closed. And so, NEJA is part of the campaign to close Rikers, and there's been some movement recently, and I'll mention it, and obviously everyone feel free to jump in. But yeah, again, it's not just about environment if it's outside of the lives that people can live. We can't have a clean environment with people that don't have lives worth of dignity around them. So with that, let's get walking.
Your umbrella may be a little larger,
yeah,
but I'm tall.
That's
so.
true.
Yeah. And so now we're kind of at the harder border between kind of more mixed uses to the north, where we have a lot more residential and then more industrial to our south. So this is Spofford. If we look to our east, behind you, you see the beginnings of the Hunts Point distribution center. So this is one of the exits, and then you can see those buildings all the way over. That's in Soundview, across the Bronx River. So because we are next to the Bronx River actually deals with something called CSO, as do most other parts of the city. And so CSO stands for Combined Sewer Overflow. And what that means is that the Bronx River has been around for millennia. Unfortunately, over the last few centuries, as development has happened, there's been a lot more pollution directly into the system, and so most of the water that is, or a significant amount of pipes that are going into the river are untreated, so there's no level of treatment. The wastewater treatment plant along the waterfront deals with some of that, and we'll walk by it in another 20 or so minutes. But because of a lot of the CSO issues with the Bronx River, but also on the Queens side, the water along the point, between the point and Queens, is some of the dirtiest water in the state. And so I'll talk about that in a minute, but I'll look west. Yes, yeah. Power in this area from fossil fuels to renewables. These two buildings actually have rooftop solar, right? And so it's a lifeline in case, for whatever reason, the grid doesn't work. These particular sites can generate their own power. If we look further east, you can't really see it from here, but one of the larger companies in the Hunts Point distribution center, folks know Crasdale. They kind of in supermarkets, they're kind of like your generic, they sell frozen vegetables and whatnot. So they have a large distribution center here at Hunts Point. They're also doing a large community solar project on their roof. And so that would also be power that can be used at a discount for community members here at Hunts Point. Right? So with that, if folks don't have any other questions, we can keep going. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're on Randall. And so we're kind of deeply within like the industrial part of Hunts Point. You'll see a lot of these trucks just sitting here. A lot of them aren't actually potentially used for transportation as much as they are for storage. And so again, these store food and other items throughout the day. And so as you can imagine, they're on for many hours, and so that is a source of emissions. And so the point has been part of a effort called The Bronx is Breathing, which is a partnership between community organizations here and Hunts Point and NYSERDA, which is a state agency, around how to electrify vehicles such as these. So like again, these are often on all day. They're there sometimes when like there's not room within the market to actually take them out of their out of their storage and put them in the warehouses. And so the opportunity to transfer these to electrical, and also building the electrical infrastructure within the market to actually charge these facilities would mean, again, that these wouldn't just be on and just be like emitting, kind of, nitric oxide, sulfur oxide throughout the day on a day like today, right? And so I want to take guys to our next stop, which is just another block down. And we'll talk a little bit more about what's happening in the market. We actually create the infrastructure here in Hunts Point so that electric trucks can actually charge here, and again they can charge, they can wait for for them to get their loads, and then they can head off to their next destination. And so all this together is revisioning of we know that the market isn't going anywhere. It makes this part of the Bronx millions of dollars. It makes the city billions of dollars. It's a key piece of infrastructure that keeps us fed. But that comes with requirements and that comes with responsibilities. And the goal is to not pollute the neighbors here at Hunts Point at the expense of those of us who eat the food that comes out of the market. And so we're going to just walk one more avenue further down to VL. And then I'll talk a little bit about this charging station that is one of the initiatives that is underway, although it hasn't started construction yet. But before I go, any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So there are, as you said, a lot of vehicles coming in and out of here, and also a lot of facilities that require a lot of power. Has someone taken a look at what would be the electrical requirements for all of that to electrify?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's no way the infrastructure currently here can handle that amount of power demand.
That's a great question. I'm sure someone has. I don't have the answer of how much that is.
Okay.
I will say that within our vision of Renewable Rikers, part of our goal is to incorporate not only solar, but again, this is like we're thinking 20, 30 years down the line. The idea would be for there to be basically connections to offshore wind projects on the island that could be maybe again like wired here to Hunts Point. So again, we are nowhere near a place where like the market can be completely electrified, but I think at this moment we are trying to figure out what are like the strategic steps that we can take in terms of building that infrastructure, and also recognizing that again, the cost for solar and other things is dropping actively while diesel is actually increasing. And so again, it's something that's happening in real time. But that's a good question. Maybe I can do some research and maybe have it. But it would take gigawatts. Again, huge amount.
I mean, obviously, phasing.
Rikers Island. So there's
Yeah.
currently tunnels from.
That's the idea. So to go on that. So the idea is that again, we don't think these plants will completely disappear once the new one on Rikers Island is built. But as Andrea mentioned, these would become wet water plants, so they really are only activated when you have a much more water than usual. So when I say that 700 million gallons, that's dry weather. That's like when there's no rain.
It's not peak.
Right.
It's average.
Right. But on days when it's heavy rain, that capacity doubles, generally speaking. And so the idea would be, again, these wouldn't be actively functioning plants on a day-to-day basis. They would be pass-throughs. So there would be tunnels from these plants to the new one on Rikers. And so, again, that means that if you're, I don't know if folks have ever been around wastewater plants, they're kind of smelly. I mean, we can't smell it from here because this one is,
Hence downwind.
yeah. So we're good today, but it's just such a benefit for communities that live next to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there would be a way to design it in a way where you're bringing, more pedestrian access. And I mean, River Bank State Park, right? There's a park on top of a wastewater treatment plant in Harlem. So
Yeah.
I think there's thinking that some of the land could be returned to the community.
Probably like storage for the solar panels.
I think it'd be like charging, like stations. Yeah. Yeah.
From the grid, because the solar panels on.
Yeah, it's not going to be no.
That's why I was wondering if
yeah,
the battery
yeah,
storage was.
Absolutely. So let's read what the press release says. That's why I printed it out.
Well, and I wonder if the trucks would then feed back into the grid during,
So it says that at least this site would have 40 light, medium, and heavy-duty electric vehicle charging stations, about 10,000 square feet of indoor space. Let's see.
For them to rest while they're charging?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really what it's for.
Yeah. So, led by M&A Energy, a New York City-based developer and one of the largest independent solar energy producers in the United States, the Charging Depot, Welcome Center, and Workforce Development Hub would anchor the next chapter for Hunts Point and be a crucial commitment of Hunts Point Forward, which is one of the planning processes I mentioned. The proposal would include 32 direct current fast chargers, at least 8 of which would be suitable to Class A vehicles, with trailer-enabled fast charging stalls and 10 level 2 chargers. The infrastructure would support both medium and heavy-duty and light-duty electric vehicles, as well as micro-mobility options such as electric bikes and scooters available 24/7. The project is anticipated to start in development in 2026. This charging depot and multi-purpose hub would deliver on key commitments of Mayor Adams' Green Economic Action Plan by helping combat climate change while helping the Hunts Point community to benefit from these green color jobs. So no, I don't see anything about when it's to be completed. Let's say 5 years. But again, this would be a game changer in terms of I think we want to see more electric, vehicles, and we do see electric vehicles in terms of Amazon using some of their things. They have their vans, also the trikes, and so this could be an opportunity not only to actually have a space to actually direct them to, and again, truck routing is important in an area like this because otherwise, you're walking and you'll suddenly see trucks coming out of anywhere. And so it's an opportunity also to, again, really involve the community that lives around here as part of that ecosystem. So again, how can we connect local people to these jobs in a way that, again, can actually be part of a green economy for Hunts Point. So any other questions for April? So our next stop is actually the wastewater treatment plant, right? So I'll talk a little bit about, we'll circle back to Renewable Rikers and the potential vision for that particular plant as part of the wider proposal. Right? It feels like the rain has let up a little bit. You can potentially take out methane as part of a process that can be used on site. I think we have some concerns around pushing it back into the grid. And because we don't want it, we want to move away from natural gas. We want to move away from those things. But if we have it on site, fine. But we want to minimize using it otherwise. Yeah.
If nothing else, it's a transitional energy solution, right?
Yeah.
The demand in the Northeast for natural gas is the highest of anywhere in the country because of the weather.
Yeah.
So
that's going to pretty much remain the same.
it's not going to remain the same, but it's going to take it would be the amount of gas that these facilities generate that will go onto the grid is so small compared to the demand.
Well, you should have went on the last tour to Greenpoint when we looked at the largest LNG site in the state.
Yeah.
Which those organizers were saying we need to decommission all of that and move electrification, heat pumps, and thermal energy networks, but yeah, we're not moving in that direction right now.
Yeah.
Do most of the cities...
The Hunts Point wastewater facility plant. As I mentioned, this is one of 4 that surround Rikers Island. These were all constructed basically in the years during kind of the LaGuardia administration of the 30s and like the decades after. And so at this point, they are mostly at their functional end in terms of their operational capacity. And so there's this question, right? Together, the 4 plants treat approximately 700 million gallons every day, right? And so that's a huge amount for facilities that have been running conservatively for the last 7 decades. And so that is the power of a new facility as part of Renewable Rikers. So the idea would be a new facility on Rikers Island would have the approximate capacity of all 4. And then there's an opportunity to figure out what we want to do with that land. So there are investments being made at this facility, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I know you did like a tour. Did you do a tour of the one in Newtown Creek? Or
Newtown Creek, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so that is the most recently completed facility. And so, you know, not only do they do wastewater treatment plant, but they also do like anaerobic digestion. And so there's a few other things that we would like to be as part of like the wider vision, like co-benefits. And so, you know, for us, we recognize that, you know, places like Hunts Point are centers for waste transfer stations. So like they are the places where the trucks that come to your block and pick up the garbage, the trucks come from here. And so we recognize that, and we would like to figure out ways where possible to move stuff out of that waste stream and figure out ways that we can, you know, both figure out ways to reuse that waste in another way, but also, are we in the way? I don't know. I don't know if you want to.
I got a question, right?
Yes.
So, like, so this the waste treatment plant,
Yes.
right? How big is it?
So it processes, I don't know off the top of my head, I think it processes somewhere in the range of 150 to 200 million gallons a day.
Okay.
That sounds right.
So like,
Are you like space?
But
Yeah, like space, like how-
The 4 plants combined are about, I think, over 200 acres.
okay, so
So
just those
close to 50 acres.
so just those plants alone will be like, when they get on Rikers, it's gonna take up a lot of the space.
Yeah, it will probably take the majority of the space in terms of like our vision for Renewable Rikers. So I think,
It won't take up the
But
same space that it
technology
does
is
now.
so much more modern that it
Yeah.
can be significantly, it can handle the same capacity, but at a significant smaller.
Oh, gotcha.
but just so you
But
know,
it's still very large.
it is large. So this goes to the waterfront, and then it goes down another 6 or 7 blocks. So this is probably about, conservatively, maybe 20 acres. Maybe even more than that. Maybe closer to 50. But again, like, you know, as Andrea mentioned, we have such better technology in the 2020s than we did in the 1920s. It can hopefully be just much more efficient.
Like the idea of just how everything is gonna be ran, like
Yeah.
it's gonna be totally different.
Yeah. Surprisingly large. Again, you know, you can see where we were. Feels like, you know, market or next to the market. And so again, because there are trucks constantly coming and going, it's a very, you know, not pedestrian friendly place to be. I'm going to take us just a little bit further south to where the new EV charging hub will be. But I did want to just flag, and you know, there has been some redesign over the years, so like now there is a bike path. We now see a lot of electric bikes coming and going, which is a change. And so, you know, during the week, you see people coming and going and using particularly the bus service to head to the parts of the like a physical barge that's used to hold detainees that was off the shore down the street. And so I don't know how much longer this sign is going to be here, but just want to take a notice. And it was decommissioned it was like November. Yeah.
Decommissioned last 24.
Yeah.
Like October, November 24.
Yeah.
But it actually got shipped out this 25.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
it got shipped down to a scrap metal company down in Mississippi. So they had, they check up with us and give us updates on like when it's going to be actually scrapped. So it hasn't been scrapped yet, but they do have plans to scrap it.
I'd seen some like community visions. I don't know if like, you know, who is developing them, but to convert it into like a food growing barge or other different development models. Was that something that you guys were interested in, or were you just doing?
No, I think that myself included, since I did time on the barge, I think that myself as well as our members wanted to see it, you know, scrapped because of so much of the injustice that happened there. We have a member who named by the name of Lizandra Cadu, and her son died on the barge. So, you know, just in the memory of him alone, you know, it needs to be scrapped and just like utilized for something else. Yeah.
So just so folks can get the sense of the scale of the barge, this is a picture of it.
Yeah, so it's a ship. It was a ship. Essentially, it was a ship. It was a temporary thing for overcrowded. Temporary. For overcrowded back in like '96, and it just became a staple here. And through the advocacy work, man, you know, got rid of it.
So we're at our next stop. It's hard to believe. So we're across the street from the current, relatively new facilities for Grow NYC. Which, you know, they do a lot of work supporting kind of small farmers markets and green markets around the city. But you'll notice just next to them in this large field will be what will be the new charging station for Hutch Point. So focusing on these graphics. Okay, so they're here. This is there, right? And so this new charging hub will be basically a center for future electric trucks to basically charge, but also the drivers to, you know, potentially either grab, you know, something to eat, and basically kind of like a rest station as part of like, you know, a new vision for the distribution of like, you know, different things here to Hunts Point. So let's just go through some of these things. So you can see what will look like here. And these are just some kind of mock-ups right now, but again, as you can see, no construction yet. But as part of Bronx is Breathing, this is basically one of the efforts to really have the type of infrastructure that can actually manage potentially thousands of electric trucks coming to the neighborhood to charge, then going into the market, getting their, you know, their materials, and then heading out. And so I'll pass this out if folks want to take a look.
Do you know how long it takes like one truck to, I guess, go from 0 to 100%?
That's a great question. I don't know that. I wonder if anyone here does know that. I know that usually like a regular Tesla takes a couple hours, 3 hours. So I imagine maybe 5. I mean, it depends on the strength of like the charger, but maybe, you know, 4 or 5 hours. You know, again, just to make it so that you're not using the whole day to have to charge. But yeah. Second to last stop. So as I mentioned, we have for this wastewater treatment plant new anaerobic digesters. So again, the idea, and maybe you might be able to more succinctly. Yes.
Go for it. You start.
Okay. So the idea is that again, the wastewater facility is treating sewage, but also one of the byproducts that you can take out of the sewage. Well, one of the things you could do with sewage is you could process it and use it for fertilizer. You can also put some stuff in an anaerobic digester that can take out, you know, certain gases such as methane that could be used on site. But
Yeah.
you wanna jump on?
Yeah, so like the wastewater treatment process, right? As you go along and clean out, there's what's called biosolids. It's the carbon-based material that drops out of the water as it gets cleaner and cleaner.
Yeah.
And that material there's a lot of that material, obviously. So the idea behind digestion is it reduces the material because it breaks down the carbon in that process through digestion and then releases methane gas along with other concentrations, but the majority is methane gas. So it's a way to reduce your waste streams and create a reusable byproduct of that.
Yeah.
So
making it to our last stop, which is Barretto Point Park. Everyone, you were saying that this park has existed for a long time and has been like, one of a local effort to actually renovate it and make it more accessible to the public. And so, again, the park in this version, do you know like how long it's been since they redid it?
I mean, it's been on and off for the last probably about, I'm gonna say about like 5-10 years.
Yeah.
That they've been renovating this park, and like as you see, it looks really, really nice. I mean, I remember, back in the early 90s coming out here, and it was just terrible. Like this area was just like you don't even want to come out here.
Yeah, and it's isolated. It's nothing really near here, so you have to travel to actually get here. One of the things that I didn't point out is that the point has been pivotal in creating a shuttle around around Hunts Point that actually comes down here. And so I think they run shuttles during the day, like maybe twice an hour, from like Wednesday through Saturday. So again, if you have community folks that want to make it down here, but may not have the mobility to walk all the way, that's an opportunity that they can use. So behind us, we have the pier. During the summer, there is a floating pool. Obviously not now. But
it's beautiful,
and it's
it
another
looks like, they got sand, they got some sand on it and everything.
Yeah, and so let's contextualize where we are. So we're now on the waterfront along the East River. This island straight ahead, this is I think North Brother Island, uninhabited and quietly just kind of riding away. You have South Brother Island to its left, and then as we walk further directly south of here is Rikers Island. So where you see those trucks in the distance and that facility, that tall gray facility, that's Rikers Island. And so again, the idea is that, as part of the campaign to close Rikers, the facilities are formally, the jails are supposed to close by 2027. Unfortunately, we're not quite at that timeline. But I believe at this point, all the borough-based jails that are supposed to replace the facilities on Rikers are either in construction right now or their designs are being completed. And so ideally, fingers crossed, those facilities would be completed by 2032. And soon after, folks on the island would be moved off the island to those facilities, right? So after that, and after the demolition of those facilities, we then have 400 acres or so to play with in terms of Renewable Rikers. So let's talk about what we can do, right? So I mentioned again that the vision is renewable energy plus a new wastewater treatment plant plus composting, right? And so that's not going to all happen together at once. And so the idea that our coalition has had is that, it could be a phased approach where we build in phases. And obviously this is something that we need to generate money and capital funding for. And so the idea would be that it would be mainly 2 phases. Sorry, let me find my notes. And folks can actually read our summary from our report that came out last month if you want. And so the idea is that phase 1 would hopefully start soon after the completion of the borough-based jails, the move of folks off the island, and the demolition of the facilities. And so that would be mostly focused on generating power, both generation of power through solar, but also the potential of battery storage, right? And so battery storage is a key necessity as part of our vision. And so again, we can't use renewables unless we have the ability to put stuff for storage. Again, as we generate power during the day, we can store it and then release it at night. And so we do see Rikers Island as a key place for battery storage in addition to some solar. Once we actually have the construction of the wastewater treatment plant, let's say 15 years down the line, and with the construction starts and finishes 30 to 35 years down the line, obviously the wastewater facility would take up the majority of our vision for Renewable Rikers. Would be about 200 to 230 acres, so sizable. And then obviously we would reduce the amount of battery storage and solar to kind of, make it fit. But in addition, we would like to have like a pretty industrial sized composting facility that can deal with a lot of the city's composting and organic waste. And so again, I don't know if folks can see it from here. So I don't think I've mentioned, so Renewable Rikers is technically the law. It was legislated through what we call the Renewable Rikers Act, which was passed back in 2021 by the City Council. And so part of that process of getting the jails to close is to actually get the city to study the potential for transferring facilities on the island that are not being used or being kind of like lightly used out of the control of the Department of Corrections and into the control of what we call DCAS, Department of Citywide Administrative Services, that manage like the city's portfolios and buildings. And so, again, unfortunately, under the Adams administration, we saw no transfer of land. We don't even think he really analyzed any potential for transfers. But we have a new administration that seems much more friendly to the vision of closing the jails and Rikers, but also this vision for renewable Rikers. And so we hope in the next few months to see our first piece of land, our first pieces of land transferred out of the control of DOC in over 4 years. So, yeah. So we're looking forward to that. And then we see a ferry. So unfortunately, there's no stops here in Hunts Point. It stops next door in Soundview, which is like by water probably like 5 minutes, but so close but so far. And so you can't really see it. You can't really make it out because it's a really great day. But I'll point out just, again, our goal at Renewable Rikers is in part to close some of the polluting infrastructure that's impacted Hunts Point, but other parts of the South Bronx and Queens. And along, I showed you guys the map at the beginning. I can point out some of the peaker plants that I can make out. So if folks can see here where we see those green tanks, I think that's one of the peakers. If you look towards the Hellgates Bridge, there's a few different peakers and electricity. So you see this one with the smokestacks that's like directly, looks like front of the, yes. And then you have a smaller one to the left. You have another one, I believe, here. You see that red building in the distance? And so you can't make it out, but there's like a wastewater treatment plant next to that red building, and that serves a lot of Queens, yes. Particularly like Long Island City along the waterfront. Yeah.